Yo, what's good with you? Back in black with another Enlisted video. If you guys are new to the channel and you love shooting games just like me, don't forget to aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates and improve your skill-based matchmaking. At least I hope so. In this video, I kind of just wanted to have a discussion with you guys about playing Japan in general when it comes to the game of Enlisted. As of late, I have been playing them a lot, due to the recent map Burma being released for the campaign of USA and Japan in general for the Pacific. And ironically, what I have noticed is that a lot of my Japanese games have been a bit on the harder side, which isn't necessarily anything that's new, but kind of the thing that's vexing to me about it is the simple fact that everybody is still hating on Japan for some odd reason, or at the very least they're showing a lot of reluctance to play that faction in general. And it's kind of crazy to me because it's like, even with a new map coming out and all the incentive, they added a new machine gun for Japan as well, just basically more reasons to play that faction generally speaking. It still seems that there is a large disdain among the enlisted community playing Japan in general. And I kind of just wanted to dive a little bit more into that because it's a very unfortunate thing that's occurring because, at the end of the day, the more people that you have queuing up for every faction and, every type of, map or game that you can get into and Enlisted, the better for the community overall. Because I would hate to be in a situation where, every time you play against Japan, you're essentially just playing one to two people or just playing against bots, which is a very, very lackluster experience, not only for you as the person going against Japan as a faction, but also for the person who is on that side and basically has 8 to 9 bots that he has to contend against, up to 10 USA players on the other team. So that's not really a fair thing. But yeah, neither here nor there. Let's get into my first example or talking point. So a lot of this is just speculation at the end of the day, but I think a lot of the malcontents when it comes to playing Japan and Enlisted, especially at the lower BRs like 1 to 3, is the simple fact that Japan is a very, very slow burn type of faction or campaign, the Pacific in general when it comes to playing Enlisted. Japan was obviously the last faction to get added to the game generally speaking, so at that point, everybody pretty much who was already playing Enlisted from the get-go grinded out all the other factions, USA, Russia, and Germany up until that point. And I think what it is that, maybe it was on a more even playing field when Japan first came out and everybody was more or less equally queuing up for Japan and USA. But nowadays it's kind of, especially for the newer players, it's kind of at a point where anybody who is left playing Japan is already a very experienced player. So let's say they're already on BR1 or BR2 Japan and they're going up against they're either going to get queued in the games with Japanese mains that are already maxed out, have BR4 or 5 machine guns and stuff like that, rifles, semi-automatics, against the USA players with Springfield still, which is a very unfortunate thing. But it's kind of like what you got to do if you end up on a Pacific map as a BR1 or 2 USA player, and there's no BR1 or 2 Japanese players that equally match you up on that side. So again, that's a very unfortunate thing right there. The other thing I've noticed, let's say you're on the Japan side, going back to what I was saying about it being a slow burn, most of the weapons that they get in the BR1 or 2 side of their tech tree is very, very lackluster. You're mostly just going to be relegated to bolt action rifles, and I think a lot of the newer players don't really like that, especially when they're going up against USA faction players that have M1 carbines and Browning automatic rifles and stuff like that, and they don't necessarily have anything to match up. They are more inclined to give up when they're playing on that side as opposed to sticking it out and really grinding that faction out, which kind of gives Japan that label of being the hardest faction in the game to play. But it's kind of crazy to me because I would think at the point, if you already played, BR1 or 2 in Germany, USA, and Russia, you would already be kind of acclimated to bolt action rifles. And that's the thing that Japan is, definitely, they excel excel in that area as far as like having really good bolt action rifles. So I guess I can understand like when you get to a point where you don't really want to use those anymore, or especially if you didn't start out when you first started playing Enlisted, playing Japan, you're kind of like over it, for lack of better words, when it comes to using slower firing semi-automatic early war weapons. And of course, let's be real, Japan's tech tree isn't really the most sophisticated thing out there, and you're not really going to get anything good, quote unquote, until you get into that like BR4 or 5 range. So I can kind of see where like the newer or not as seasoned Enlisted players are coming from when they say they just don't want to play Japan. I get it in a sense, but like it's just a very unfortunate process, and I just think the game would be better served if everybody would queue up for each faction, generally speaking. And ways they can combat that, I mean, the most that I could do on my side or come up with is just to give tips and tricks on how to play Japan. And I think a lot of that just lies in the playing into the faction strengths, which again is a long range combat when you're in the early BRs. And I mean, I guess once you get your machine guns in BR4 and 5 when you're playing Japan, I mean, the playing field is kind of on par or even, as you can see in the gameplay that I'm presenting to you right now. But that is a very slow burn or a very long grind, and I don't think a lot of players have the mental fortitude for that, especially if they're not shelling out, you know, a bunch of money just getting all the Japanese premium squads and vehicles. And when it comes to Japanese vehicles, even those aren't necessarily that great, so again, just less incentive to want to play them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think Japan is necessarily that bad of a faction. It's just one of those factions where you really gotta play to your strengths, or like really be in tune with the equipment that each of your squads have, and like actually have some decent teammates. Because I will admit, when it's just you and like the rest of your team just isn't good, or you just have bots and they don't really like do anything to contribute to a proper defense, you will get rolled more often than not. But like I find in my personal experience, as long as I have one or two decent teammates that are also adequately equipped with decent, you know, armaments for their squads, then we can pretty much stonewall them, and it's not really that much of an issue when it comes to dealing with the USA faction, unless they're partied up. But I mean, for the most part, when it comes to equipment, they're pretty much on par. To give a little more credence to what I was saying, I was looking on Reddit earlier today, and I literally see people on here saying that they have literally never seen anybody get 100+ kills on the Japanese side, and that's just like, it's asinine to me. Is it really that like deficient of a, you know, amount as far as like good players on the Japanese faction? I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on the time of day that you're playing, but to see comments like this and, you know, examples like this on Reddit just like blows my mind. Because how can you end up, like, how can a faction be in such a deplorable state where like you can't even come across, some players are literally not even coming across people that can manage to get over 100 kills? And the Japanese faction, again, I mean, like, they don't have the best guns in the world, but it's not to the point where like you just literally can't compete and manage to pull off a decent amount of kills. As long as you, like, you know, stick to the strengths of the faction, which again, you know, lies in like long range combat and bolt action rifles, and, you know, actually being an accurate player, then I just don't see how you can end up in a situation where you're just constantly getting rolled. And like, I'm just curious to know, like, if you guys could post down in the comment section for anybody who does play Japan, could you tell me what your win percentage is as the faction when you do play as them? Because like, in my mind, I'm thinking like it really can't be that bad. But like, if it's as bad as what I'm seeing on Reddit, then it just might be like time for us to start campaigning as a community to like get people to play as the Japanese faction. And maybe Enlisted could, you know, just keep doing what they're doing as far as like bring new maps to that campaign, because of course that would implore more people to play in that campaign. But something else that I was thinking, maybe they could just like reduce the amount of like tiers in the BR system and like kind of just reduce that down to like 1 or 2, and maybe just have like early war and late war equipment, as opposed to like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 9 times out of 10, according to this comment that I saw earlier, when it comes to BR3, most of the time you end up in BR4 or 5 matches anyways, which you kind of just get kind of destroyed in those matches with those higher tier players. So again, you might as well just take 3 and like chalk that up to like early war equipment, and then like if somebody has that, throw them in the early war tier. If they have late tier stuff, throw them in the late war tier. So I think that's maybe something else that they could look at to maybe quell the dissatisfaction with the Japanese faction in general. But I do want to know what you guys think down in the comment section. It's just I don't know. To this day, it's not the first time that I've talked about it, but Japan seems to be in a dire state, and even with the new map, it doesn't seem to be getting any better. And it's not like they can add much more weapons. We're already kind of in the 1945 type stuff. So, you know, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I do appreciate you guys for watching if you have made it thus far. And yeah, don't forget to aim for that like button, shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates and improve your skill-based matchmaking. Black guy out.